What is going on, Monkey Pod universe?
I have the honor of introducing our experts today. And if you saw my Facebook post earlier, you'll know that I am, is the word overwhelmed or impressed by the whole bunch of guest speakers that we have today. I had to ask the team, like ask Jade and Greg, how much time we had for this webinar, because I know that we could listen to each of our guest speakers for probably the whole hour or many days and still not learn everything they know about this topic. So to have one of them would be special, and to have all three of them, I think is really extraordinary. We're lucky to have them. I do know all of our guests in real life, so I can introduce them, but to prevent my kind of long-windedness, I've prepared my notes. So I'm going to read them because I don't want to take the whole 65 minutes saying all the things I think about these people. So the first, I'm going to change the order here. The first, we've got Paul Sokol. Hello, Paul.
Hi.
Paul is the owner. He's the automation expert at BPro. Paul helps people plan out their automated business processes in virtually any automated system. Doesn't have to be just one. If it's a tech tool that can make things happen, Paul can make things happen in it. And he works in the entire life cycle across sales, marketing, and fulfillment. One thing special that I wanted to note for Paul today is that he also supports clients with paid advertising. So while lots of people in our circle of expertise do a lot of automation work, Paul also has that layer of planning, configuring, and monitoring ads, which is super important. Which is a super important part of getting your offers out there. Paul also has some really great content out there, including a video series called Campaign Spelunking, where he walks through campaigns, both old and new, to figure out how and why they work. I don't know if that's the one you wanted me to plug, Paul, but that's the one I watch, so that's the one I chose to go with. A little bit later on, we've offered the opportunity for each of these people to share something with you. So Paul has given us all access to his How to Automate Like a Pro mini course. So we're going to offer that to you later on in the call. So welcome, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for that amazing introduction. And yeah, campaign spelunking is pretty cool. I'll probably do season 2, but have guests. So that way it's not just
But
me
have guests.
looking through my nerd.
Little less work, yeah, I get that. Second, Cheryl. We've got Cheryl Rarick here. Cheryl runs Cheryl Rarick Consulting, where she offers her signature program, Automate and Chill. Cheryl teaches course creators and coaches to build a business that works hard, even when they don't, so that they can find balance in their life. When I was trying to get ready for this, I found the term anti-hustle in a lot of the ways people introduce you. So to bring that, it works hard when you're not, there's no glory in hustling. And I can personally say that Cheryl's given me some tough love. My last trip out west, you talked to me about it. The last time we spoke on the phone, you talked to me about it. So thank you for doing that for me. And I just want to be specific, just to be concrete about one of Cheryl's many talents and how it fits into this webinar. Cheryl's an expert in copywriting. So the copywriting that's required to get your offers built, launched, and converting the way you want. I know you do a lot more than just copywriting, but that's certainly one of the things I admire about what you bring to your clients in your program, and why I think you're a great fit for this webinar. Paul's offering a course. Cheryl, I hope you actually are following through on this, because it's a big promise. But Cheryl is going to give us a live stuff today, but she's making this worksheet, the sales cycle worksheet that's all about offer milestones, available for free to us, and has never been offered for free, and it's never been offered outside of her paid program. So I feel pretty special to be getting that. And then the final of 3 to introduce is hi Cheryl. I give Paul a second to say hi. I shouldn't just.
Hi, thanks for that intro. And yes, I did pull off a little opt-in sheet so that I can give that resource away today. Yeah.
Love that. Perfect. And Michael Hunter is here with us. Michael is the co-founder at Spiffy Checkouts, which is the maker of the original Spiffy for Infusionsoft product, which runs our checkout forms at MonkeyPod and lots of people's checkout forms. And now, more recently, the conversion optimized checkout software called Spiffy Checkouts. Michael and his team at Spiffy have helped to create checkout experiences for some of the biggest influencers, personal brands, and kind of events in the world. And I think you're up to $1 billion in payments processed is the last kind of milestone I saw you hit, which is very cool. So, of course, Cheryl and Paul offered up some gifts. Michael didn't want to be outdone, so he is giving us his 12-point inspection for an optimized checkout, which is a self-serve resource. You can download it, you can use it, and learn everything you need to about that. Big breath. Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
To the live stream. And I didn't write big, long bios for each of you, but Jade, Greg, love you both. Thanks for being here. And thanks for being on stage to take everybody through this. With that, I'm going to pause and give it to Greg to talk about why we're here.
Okay, well, sure. Hi, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. Hi, Cheryl, Paul, and Michael. I just, like Cameron said, am kind of giddy because this is a fun conversation, but I also just really enjoy the three of you personally. As much as I love Michael and Paul, I want to validate. They're fine, whatever. I want to validate something that Cameron said about Cheryl, just to underscore her talent. This is a compliment that was paid to me a number of years ago when Sam Bennett said that she had a copywriting crush on me, and that is how I feel about Cheryl. Is like I am smitten with her emails and her website. It is personality rich in all of the best ways. Jade, there is a line on her website you would love. She said, "I've been in the digital marketing world since we all had thin eyebrows, and some of us are still recovering." And I spit my coffee out. I was like, wow, this is just, it's human and valuable. So Cheryl, good on you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate
Yes,
that.
my pleasure. So today we're talking about offers, and we're doing that because offers are like the lifeblood of our business, right? Offers lead to sales, and sales are how you do more and serve more and accomplish more. With whatever your goals might be. So no matter the business or industry or part of the world you are in, you have offers of some kind. And today's conversation is about thinking through the mechanics and the strategy of how to maximize your offers so that they are as successful as possible, so that you can achieve all of your hopes and dreams and, serve as much of the world as makes sense for you. So that's sort of the loose context. More specifically, I know it's Q4. Somehow we're almost at the end of October already, but we are entering like an offer-heavy season on the calendar, right? So between Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and general holiday promotions, I know lots of small businesses are gearing up for some sort of promo season. And maybe it pertains to one of those, or maybe it's just, your normally scheduled November offer. But regardless, we thought this was a time and a timely time at that to have this conversation. So I guess what I want to start with is just before we get into like our prompts here, is I just want to talk about the concept of an offer. And I think the simplest way to think about it is like, it's whatever you sell. But there is a distinction to me between like your products and your offers. And so I wanted to invite our panelists, and maybe I'll start with Michael, and then we'll give Paul and Cheryl an opportunity to weigh in if you want. But like, is there more to unpack with like the language or verbiage that we're using with an offer? And I'm not yet talking about audience. I'm not yet talking about the tools or tech, but just from like a business strategy perspective, is there more there? Or is it like, I sell this membership, the membership is my offer? Go ahead, Michael.
Oh man, I don't know how to give a succinct answer to that. There's a lot to dig into. I think ultimately the biggest reason why people struggle with building an online business is they don't get enough. They don't get an offer in front of people. Plainly, the one reason why people don't make money online is they don't get an offer in front of people. And there's two different ways to craft an offer. One is just packaging something that you're good at and passionate about, versus actually looking at the market and solving a problem. So, I mean, even to answer your question succinctly, yes, there's so much to unpack before just deciding, what you want to deliver. The example that you gave of, a membership site is what you want to deliver, and is that your offer? That's like the modality of the value that you're delivering. And so when it comes back to the offer, you have to zoom it out even a step away from the modality of how you're delivering the value or delivering a transformation, because that's ultimately what people are buying. And the offer is like, what type of transformation am I selling? And that can be delivered in a lot of different ways.
Thanks. I appreciate, as you guys know, I'm not known for my brevity. So I appreciate any endeavor from our part to try to be succinct, because I know that like there's a lot here. And as Cameron kind of alluded to, I'm just noticing Cameron's shirt. Perfect. As Cameron alluded to, like we could spend all day or all week listening, to any one of these three guest experts. But Paul and Cheryl, is there more you want to say there about like the delineation between your products and your offers? Let's go with Paul first.
Yeah, so I love talking about this, because back in the day when I worked at Infusionsoft, now at Keep, I was on the product team, and we were doing like research R&D on customer, like on small business success, right? And what I learned is that there's various components to what you're offering. And when you're clear about that, that helps you develop the customer journey around it. So for example, of course, I'm approaching it super academically like a nerd. So like, for example, is it a product or is it a service? Like that's a huge high level distinction. And then the next one is like, are we targeting B2B or B2C? That's four combinations right there. And everything kind of can waterfall from there. Like, what's the price magnitude? Like, is it dollars, tens of dollars, hundreds, thousands? What's the modality of the sale? Is it an assisted sale? Is it unassisted, where they can buy it on their own? And what we were researching and studying was that being clear about those components of the offer is how your strategies are going to fall out. So like if you have and Jade's just out of here, she's like, it's too much for me. So like if you have like a B2B product that's in the thousands magnitude and it's an assisted sale, for example, you could absolutely use a sales pipeline. And that's probably something you want to have in your sales journey. Whereas it wouldn't make sense to do a sales pipeline if you're selling coffee. It's dollars. The buying cycle is minutes to hours, maybe. People don't spend weeks to months deciding if they want to buy a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Let me we're actually going to get a little more into some of those like distinctions you drew in some of the upcoming questions we have. But if I can distill what you just said down, it's like your product is what you sell. The offer is like how you sell it, the way you position it, or the way you, communicate that product's value or unique qualities to the audience. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair to say. It's almost like an offer is always going to be a product or a service, but a product or service isn't necessarily always an offer.
Right.
Like inherently it is, because like you could look at like a Big Mac. That's a product, that's an offer by itself. But the Big Mac meal, where it's the Big Mac bundled with fries, bundled with the drink, that's an offer.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to share a little like, egg on my face, but the very first course that I launched for MonkeyPod, I actually shouldn't have used the word launched. The very first course I created, I failed to launch. I literally published the WordPress page like for it. I did all of the mechanics behind the scenes, and then I just like dusted my hands off and was like, cool, can't wait till people find it. And like this is I've learned a lot, come a little ways, but like Cheryl, I know you've worked with plenty of course creators. I'm sure that's I'm sure that's more common than people realize, is like forgetting the act of like, actually making the offer to people. So do you want to add anything on the offer versus product?
Yeah, I would love to. Just to what you said, I encourage people to sell it before they make it a lot of the times, because you can make something and then no one wants it. You just wasted all your time. So
I want to press on that, because that can be uncomfortable for people to accept money for something that doesn't quite exist yet. So say a little more about that.
It depends on your offer. You have to be responsible. It has to be something you can pull off. But for example, for Black Friday,
we're not talking Theranos here.
I'm testing out some new smaller offer ideas. I'm going to sell them on Black Friday, and they'll be delivered later in December. But then if no one buys it, I don't have to waste my time making it. So to your point. But I'd like to touch on two things that came up for me listening to Michael and Paul. I agree with all of it, obviously. And I think one thing that's really important that Michael sort of touched on is making sure that we're solving problems with our offer, because your offer, like what you're selling might be business coaching, but nobody wants to buy business coaching. That's not I call it a hair on fire problem. It's not a hair on fire problem people have. They're not searching for that usually. They want to get to 10K months this quarter with only working 20 hours a week. They want something specific, or they want to end a specific problem that they're having. And so in your offer messaging, we have to be super, super specific about those things. So I heard someone once call it nighttime problems. You have daytime problems that are small problems, but focus on the nighttime problem, the ones that keep you up at night. I thought that was brilliant. I wish I could remember who said that. The other thing that I would mention in an offer is what Paul was talking about, is like repackaging what you offer depending on the season and what's happening in the world, because the marketplace changes. Look what we've been through in the last 4 years, right? So what people wanted before was like, oh, I want a laptop lifestyle, travel the world during 2020, 2021. That's no longer the message to sell the offer, but you can still sell the same offer that gives people their time back, but you need to repackage the messaging the way you sell it. So that would be like a new version of an offer, kind of to what Paul was saying.
You guys, I feel so much alignment in what I'm hearing, and I hope that distinction isn't lost on the audience, right? Like, yes, you should be clear on your products, but the offer is a separate and distinct way that you communicate the value of the product, and you're not locked into a singular mechanism or framing for an offer. And that's, I think, an important point Cheryl closed with there, is like, based on when and to whom you are making this offer, a lot of the conversation can shift, which is a great segue, a masterful one, I might add, into our next question. Cameron, I'll pass it back to you.
It does feel like you all knew the questions in advance and you didn't. So thanks for the segue. And I think it is really interesting that that Greg framed his question in the idea of, is a product and an offer one and the same thing? And obviously, the answer has been that it's not, right? It's the bundle of things. It's the problems it solves. It's the nighttime problem that you're describing that might be, many products or a particular experience or particular outcome or those types of things. The question I want to ask is around the timing of when you should make offers, or when you're best to make offers. And so where Greg asked if a product and an offer is the same thing, is an offer and a launch the same thing? Or is the idea of having a launch timing part of that conversation as well? And let's go to Cheryl. I know you just mentioned trying Black Friday for the first time. So I'd love to start with you on the answer to that.
That's such a big question. I could talk for days about launching, right? So no, it's not the same. Like, Greg had an offer, but he didn't launch it. He didn't market it to anybody. He didn't put that offer in front of his people at the right time for them to buy it. So yeah, that's such a big question. But I would say in my world, because I work with course creators mostly and people who have group programs and things like that, we often have to reverse engineer when we launch based on our capacity to deliver the offer. So you have to consider lifestyle. I'm anti-hustle and all of that. I have to consider what works for my lifestyle when I plan out my offers for the year. But then there's also like Black Friday natural buying seasons that we just have to take advantage of, right? They have their wallets out, so we got to take advantage of that. But I would encourage, when you're getting ready to launch an offer, everyone focuses on that open cart, that, okay, it's for sale today and it ends on this day. And there's so much intensity there, which is really important. But I would encourage everyone to back it up and think about what I call pre-launch. And that is the 4 to 6 weeks before. Because in your messaging, you can do so much work beforehand without even selling to help them self-identify that they have this problem. They understand the problem. They like you. They know you. They want the solution, and that your method is the solution that they want. And then when you go to open your cart and to launch, it's a much easier messaging journey to sell your offer by just addressing, what's included, the benefits, how much access they get to you, like the timeline. And so you're just focusing on offer objections instead of all the big overarching belief shifting and objection solving that needs to happen in advance. So whenever you're planning your offers, don't forget to back up 4 to 6 weeks and think about what happens before the offer, because that's often missed, I think.
That 4 to 6 guide, I think, is really, really helpful, right? Because
it can make or break a launch.
We're encouraging people to get there fast, but we're also encouraging them there to not, not prime their audience for it, right? So that 4 to 6 guideline, I think, helps us, narrow from both too long and too short kind of directions. So thank you for that. And I want to follow that up with Michael, because I know both offers and launching is a big part of what Spiffy helps people with, right? When you're about to send 100,000 visitors to an order form because of a launch or whatever it is, there's some things that are expected of that. So will you watch your clients create their offers and launch? Do you think that timing is important? Is timing important throughout the year? Is timing for anchoring events like Black Friday, Cyber Monday helpful, or is it actually not, great to be one of 100 emails in the mailbox that day trying to pitch something? So do you have opinions or deep experiences about the timing of offers and these kind of like anchoring events that happen in the year?
Yes, totally. So
a couple opinions.
A couple strong opinions and a lot of
only
experience.
$1 billion worth of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's through our customer success in Spiffy, but our software company was born out of our marketing agency. And so we did big product launches for authors, speakers, coaches, personal brands. I was Brendan Burchard's CMO for 2 full years. So we did, through Brendan and other clients like Pete Vargas and Jim Quick, we did multi 7-figure launches back to back to back. And so timing of these types of things does play a big role. Like, you don't want to launch on Super Bowl Sunday. No one's paying attention, right? So like, you need to be aware of just like cultural events. And specifically Black Friday, you asked, I have some strong opinions on that. When it comes to creating an offer, we want to create an irresistible offer. And so our natural tendency to create an irresistible offer is to have a discount. And for all of our clients since way back in the day, we've always been huge proponents of not discounting. Find ways to add more value, create a unique bundle, and have that be an offer, a value add offer. And the only reason why you would participate in like a Black Friday deal is if you're an industry that lends itself to those type of offers, and if you're very, very clear on your lifetime value of a customer number, and that discount is being used in a way to get a new customer in the door that is actually going to turn into more business long term. And typically what we see in the small business space, the course creator space, the coach space is people don't know their lifetime value numbers. They only have one offer. They only have one course or course in coaching. And they don't have an idea of how someone goes through the life cycle of the different products and services they have. So I would say that, the knee-jerk reaction is to discount, especially on Black Friday, just because everyone else is doing it. But you need to have a bigger strategy in mind. And there's other ways to create an irresistible offer just jumping straight to discounting. That's like the quick hit. That's like the no thought put into it approach to creating an irresistible offer. There's other ways that actually generate better results.
That's a really good caution around that idea of discounting. And I think it's interesting that your mind went to equating something like Black Friday to deep discounts, because that's how, Amazon or Best Buy or those types of things are going to do it. Get your 75-inch TV for way less than you should have. And that these kind of like knowledge products maybe shouldn't be bundled and discounted and so on that way. And as you were speaking, I had an experience this summer at Father's Day. My kids, my wife, through my kids, they bought me a voucher at a local golf course that was an offer. It was 2 green fees, nachos, power cart, and a bucket of range balls per person, right? It was this little bundle, and it was sold right at Father's Day. Lots of Facebook traffic, lots of ad money going towards this offer. And the thing I found really interesting, I live in a city with, 40 golf courses. I wasn't treated incredibly well because I had paid so little for that experience, right? I was having a $200 experience for $80, and they treated me like the guy who, didn't spend very much money, instead of treating me as the guy who had never been to that place before and was because of that discount, right? So why wasn't I offered a membership or a card for next time or something like that? And it was an in real life experience for me that I think relates a lot to what you just described, of that, maybe those front desk people just weren't trained with the intention of the marketers who put out that original offer to help convert me into a high lifetime value customer, which totally could have happened in that particular interaction.
Totally. And so like how that would fit into a bigger strategy. Let's just say that particular golf course had a bar and a restaurant, and their food's actually really good, but no one knows about it. So they use the greens fees discount to get you in the door. And when you go to check in, they hand you a discount for 20% off of the restaurant. So when you're done, you go get a beer, you'll get some food. You're like, wow, this place is amazing. And you spent more money, right? So the initial Black Friday discount was just to get you in the door. And then they have another special offer to get you to experience a restaurant where you're going to spend more money, right? And so then the average order value of that offer has the opportunity to translate into more than just $80. And so, yes, to your point, especially brick and mortar businesses, like your team needs to be involved in it. They need to understand the strategy. Just having an offer that converts someone to come in the door, whether it's a subscription business online or a brick and mortar business, the easiest way to generate more revenue is through your existing customers. So there's just a massive opportunity missed there. And that's a really good real world example of that.
Absolutely. So I think we'll come back in a couple of questions. You were talking about increasing the value or adding more things. The fact that they spent more money than they originally intended to when they came through, which I think obviously your work at Spiffy knows a lot about that, right? Bringing people through each step in the process. Well, we wrap up this timing piece right before I give it back to Greg. Paul, is there an advertising layer that goes to timing? Like you're offering, you're launching, like, are you worried about how people are going to spend on Facebook at a peak time versus non-peak time? Or is the strategy the same all year round? Like how does timing and advertising your offer work together?
That's an awesome question. It absolutely can impact it. So like I had a client, they do big challenges. They do a 5-day challenge, and they've really dialed in their messaging. They know how to deliver these challenges. They've done it for years. And so I think this last round they spent like 90 grand in ads over like 2 or 3 weeks, right? Because they wanted to really aggressively grow their list, and they were able to pull leads at like, roughly a little bit more than $1 cost per lead, which is amazing, right? But they're hit a point where, because we were inching up the budgets, and they're hit a point where even though we were spending, a couple $1,000s more per day, the volume of leads wasn't rising with that, and just the cost per lead was going up. To your point about the timing of it, one thing we realized is that there's a lot of political ads running right now. So the ad inventory is smaller. So that was driving up the CPMs, or the cost per 1,000 impressions. And so while, we wanted to ramp up to spending whatever $8,000 a day or something like that, we kind of tapered off, I think, in about like 4 or so, because it wasn't there. We were just spending more money to still get the same amount of leads each day. And we're like, well, that just doesn't make any sense, right? So I don't even think they spent their whole ad budget, but they definitely added like 30,000 leads to their database, which was exciting. And one thing before I forget, because I think, Cheryl, you kind of hinted at it on the first question, but there's a distinction between the offer and the positioning of the offer. And maybe that's one of the questions, but the way that you position your offer is going to be different from target audience to target audience. And even with like Black Friday.
Did you just say the word audience? I
We're
heard the
going
word
there
audience.
next. We're going there next, Paul. Yeah.
Oh,
Jade, thank you, Paul. Paul has seen the script, but he hasn't seen the script. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Paul. Like and the point that you're not just up against coach versus coach. You're like coach versus political campaign, or coach versus
Everybody.
beer, for whatever else it is that's being sold in the ad inventory at that time, which is an interesting part about timing.
Oh, I got one really good example of timing, super quick. So, like, I run a heavy metal festival every year for charity, and right now in this moment, I'm trying to find the best place to run it because there's a lot of competition. We can't run it the second to last weekend of January because there's the giant North American Music Conference in California, and usually a lot of musicians go there. So that's going to impact. And we can't do it that following weekend because there's a 70,000 tons of metal cruise that we lose people that they can't do the show because they're on the cruise. And then we can't do it the weekend of the 9th because that's the Super Bowl. So I think, Michael,
you want to own your weekend, own your space.
Yeah. And it's really
and be the one
to not compete because people aren't going to want to go to a show the same weekend as a Super Bowl. That's just the reality of it. And so you do have
unfair competition.
Yeah. Okay.
Paul, will you say the name of your charity in case people want to check it out?
Yeah. It's called Keep Children Rockin', and we provide music equipment repairs and donations to youth music programs. So there's no G on Rockin', just keepchildrenrockin.org.
Love that. Let's give, thank you, Paul. Let's give Jade the last word on timing, and then Jade back to Greg to get us into that keyword we heard a second ago. Jade, do you have something?
I think a really great way to tie a bow on this portion of the conversation is that I think it really speaks to the expertise of the group, that the point that these guys all made was very much about hey, don't be distracted by oh, I need this statistic, or I need Black Friday, or like these individual shiny objects things. And from each of these experts' perspectives, they're telling you to zoom out, not just this time, but what's your timing, not just this time, but what's your runway, not just this time, but what are the other considerations. And I think that that's so fundamental and applicable to everything. And I appreciate that you're telling everyone to not be distracted by little nuggets, but what's the big picture. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks. And I heard two things I want to underscore that I think are just worth taking home with you. Number one is Michael didn't say don't discount, right? He said discounting is a strategy. If you are discounting to get new buyers because their customer lifetime value is going to offset the money that you traded for that discount, terrific. But if you're discounting because everybody else is, or because it is Cyber Monday and you're just eating into your profit margins or erasing them entirely, that's ill-advised, right? And that is an opportunity where instead of a discount being the low-hanging fruit, you might look at a bundle where you increase the value instead of lowering the price. So for me, that is an important takeaway. I've never discounted Monkey Pod. Well, that's not true. I only have discounted Monkey Pod products when they launch. I've sold them in the initial offering below the list price as part of a thank you for people who are in the audience or who are buying early, because they trust me. And that is, another masterful segue into the distinction of audience segmentation and positioning. So let's start with Michael on this one, although I know Paul is ready for it too. Let's start with Michael. What I'm specifically wondering is how do you differentiate your offer for cold traffic? If you're running ads or posting on social, or warm traffic for the folks who are in your email audience or part of your cohort or membership. Do you differentiate? And what are the types of, ways you might position things differently based on the segment that you are promoting to? And you can feel free to take that in whatever direction you want, Michael.
Yeah. So, we all heard the statistics on, why small businesses fail, or the number of percentage of why small businesses fail, and it's over 95% fail within the first 5 years. And typically people are talking about the reason why small businesses fail is, lack of capital, lack of customers. I think it's zoomed out a step further, and it's actually executing against the wrong idea. So part of deciding what to build, what offer to create, what product or service to deliver is actually thinking about marketing it and the audience and how you're going to access that audience before you even create it. And so, that's, not always the easiest thing to do. However, there's really four things that need to be in place in order to scale a business quickly. And so there's also a differentiation between a business, an offer, and a launch. And so a lot of times people have ebbs and flows in their revenue streams because they're going launch to launch or promotion to promotion. And so there's kind of different lenses with which you can start to approach this, but specifically around audiences, let's just say that you have an online course and this is like your passion. This is something that you want to help people with, and there might be several different audiences that can benefit from the information that you have. And so, you wouldn't necessarily have to create 3 different products. It can be the same product, and you just have different messaging, different sales pages, technically creating 3 different offers for those 3 different verticals, and then you're running different ads campaigns to those 3 different offers. So it's really the same offer. When I say offer, I'm saying to me an offer is the communication of value. And so even though the course content's the same, person A, B, and C might be extracting different value, or it looks different. And so you would create 3 different sales pages, 3 different aspects of copy. Interested in Cheryl's input on this as well, being the master copywriter she is. And so then you would segment accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah. An example would be like, if you have a copywriting course, you will get some people who take that course because they are an entrepreneur and they need to do copywriting for their own business. And you will get some people who take that course who want to offer copywriting as a service to others, right? And so the skills that they learn in that course might be the same, but the way that you position those checkout pages would speak to totally separate audiences, right? And I think, I would love like people to take that same, concept and apply it to yourself. Like, what do you sell, and who are the different types of people that it might serve? And do they feel spoken to on your checkout page or in your email funnel? Like, are you going out of your way to recognize that there might be distinct different groups who purchase the same product for different reasons?
Just to speak to that one level further of identifying like a fast growth opportunity, maybe there are 3 different areas. Typically when people are creating offers that don't convert, they're trying to appeal to too wide of an audience. And so if there's 3 different areas or 3 different types of people, here's a really simple way you can kind of think through which one to pursue first. So it's not which one forever, it's just which one first. It needs to pass these 4 checks. 1, are you solving a real problem in the marketplace first and foremost? 2, is the person that you're wanting to help, are they aware that they even have the problem? 3, is that problem big enough for them to actively be seeking a solution? So are they actually looking for a solution right now? Kind of like Cheryl mentioned earlier, the daytime versus nighttime problems. If it's just like a casual daytime problem that's kind of coming and passing, then they might not even be active. They might be aware they have the problem, but they're not actively seeking a solution for it. And then the 4th thing that needs to be in place is they need to be willing to trade dollars for a solution to that problem. They could be actively seeking a solution, but it's not big enough, or it's not urgent enough, or it's not valuable enough for them to actually pay for anything. And so if those 4 things aren't in place, then no matter what type of ads you're running or what type of effort you're putting out or sponsoring events, it's going to feel like you're pushing a wet noodle uphill, so to speak.
as the old saying goes.
Yeah, as the old saying goes, yeah.
Perfect. Cheryl, in the realm of like audience segmentation and the varying ways that offers can be positioned, do you want to expand on anything Michael said or lead us in a different
I was
direction?
just smiling because I have the exact 2 audiences he used as an example. Copywriters I created my program for creatives selling their own offer, but half of the people who join are copywriters. So it's now I'm going to go into either a licensing model for them so that they can certify in my method. You know, like you said, that's a different
Right.
audience and they have different values. So I was just smiling along. I'm a very niched business. Or what do you say in the US? Niched? I'm Canadian. We're niched.
No, I mean,
we speak
yeah,
French. So
I'm in the U.S. and I say
Okay.
niche, so let's go with
we'll go with that. I have
Yeah.
a very niche business and a very specific ideal buyer with a very specific problem and a very specific phase. So in my business, I don't have to, I segment different messaging for one offer a little bit, like I just explained, but I really don't have a broad problem. Like Michael was saying, sometimes you go too wide and then you're talking to nobody. So I don't really have that problem. But I do want to point out just a sidebar when we're looking at audiences for your offers. And when you're building your pages for your offer and your checkout carts or your opt-in pages, look for congruence for where they came from. I'm noticing a really big gap right now where people are, they have many chat on Instagram and people click through to this like long form old school sales page or a Google Doc where it's not really congruent to, they just came from like dopamine city. You got to keep them engaged to get them to opt in, right? Like you have to think about where they're coming from. If they're already a buyer and you're just selling to someone who's already bought from them, you're going to have a different experience. So just keep that in mind. And when you're looking at different audiences, the step before they get there, where are they coming from and how can you make that feel congruent and similar, and where they can identify themselves too on that page so that they can opt in.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm hearing a bit of a theme in this answer and some of the previous ones, which is like start earlier than you think you need to. In like, how many, I think if you put on your marketer hat, right, you can tell when somebody's gearing up for a launch because they start posting out of nowhere and you're like, oh, okay, like something's going down over there. But like, think about warming your audience up. Think about, tilling the soil, so to speak, with whatever the experience is before, the actual offer is presented. And the same thing is true for our, email campaigns. If you're going to make an offer, like that relationship starts, earlier, than you might imagine. Paul, you sort of, started heading down this road. So I'd love to open it up to you for, the different ways that you approach segmentation or positioning of the offer.
So it's really interesting. Something that I realized in this conversation that kind of became distinct for me is that there's the positioning, but then there's also the different levels of awareness in the positioning. There's a acronym out there, UPSID, UPSYD, which is the different levels of awareness where people are either unaware that they even have a problem in the first place, or P, they are problem aware. And once they're problem aware, then S, they're solution aware, and then they're your solution aware specifically, and then D is like they're aware of like the deal or like exactly what you got going on here. And so if you're talking to somebody about solutions to a problem that they don't even know they have a problem, it's going to fall on deaf ears. You're totally going to miss it. Or if you're talking about building up, why do you have a problem with this, but they already know that, they're going to be like, buddy, I already kind of know this, and they're going to tune out. So within your positioning, and then the positioning, there can be multiple positions or like the different buckets, the different segments. I think about how the ask method, Ryan Levesque, and I don't know if y'all saw recently, but he sold his bucket IO. That thing got acquired because that's exactly what it did. It would take people, give them a quiz, and put them into a couple of specific buckets because different people have different problems and different needs and transformations, even though it might be the same offer. And so I'll usually talk to clients. I'm like, listen, McDonald's is selling hamburgers to adults and to kids, but those conversations are going to be two completely different approaches. Even though it's the same product, it's the same P&L line item at the end of the day, getting them to that is going to be different. That's where the positioning of your offer is. And so until you're clear on who
The
you're
Happy
targeting,
Meal, of course, the Happy Meal being the bundle where you've
yep,
increased value,
you get
the
toy,
toy, and yeah,
yeah. But yeah, levels of awareness is pretty important. I'm actually kind of curious. I'm sure Cheryl is. I want to get her 2 cents on that because I feel like that's really important with copywriting. Like you said, they're coming from dopamine city, but if they're problem unaware, you can't be hitting them with like a lot. I love dopamine city, by the way. That's great. Um, I'm sure you've heard of this, hopefully, as a copywriter.
I just saw. I'll let Cheryl collect her thoughts and then I'll come to her. I just saw Inside Out, the first one. For the first time. I knew I was late to the party, but I wanted to see the second one and I had to see the first one first. Anyway, Dopamine City feels like a place that they're going to be visiting in an Inside Out world.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it does.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
It's so true though. Like you're swiping the reels and the little short videos, and then you go to a landing page, you're not going to read 10 minutes. You need to keep in mind where the mental space they're in before they get there. And I totally agree with Paul about the stages of awareness and you can have all of those people on your list at the same time. You could be talking to all of them and you have to have something for each of them, right? And you can be segmenting along the way so you can really get specific. But I would just like layer onto that is, because those people will all have different objections that they're thinking as well. Like when you present an offer where they're at in the stage of awareness, like if you're having an offer on Black Friday, you're not timing the offer to their stage of awareness. Now, I'm a big fan of evergreen funnels. I like to time offers to where they are and when they're ready. But if you're launching, like if you're doing something on Black Friday, it's just a date on the calendar. You can't do that so much. So you can just prepare for that with your messaging around your offer so that they understand, like moving through those stages quickly.
I think that's a really important call out is like, we've talked about timing, but there are multiple ways to interpret that, right? Is it timing around like the physical real world calendar, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, what season of the year do people purchase landscaping services or whatever? But there's also timing in the customer journey. Like what have they just done? And like, what trust have you built? Or like, what's their experience been like? If they just signed up for your like lowest hanging lead magnet, is that the right time to hammer them with your mastermind offer, right? Or is it like after they've completed a paid course or, right? So I think that that's an important layer to the timing conversation. This has been super fun, but we have a bit more I want to try to get to here. So I'm going to pass it back to Cameron and we're going to shift from some of these more strategic questions into a little bit more of like the technical considerations. And I will, just in the interest of time, I want to encourage our guests to call out maybe like one or two responses to Cameron's questions, because I know Michael's resource is going to expand on them. And that course that Paul, that I mentioned that Paul had done will also let people dig deeper if they want to. Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah. So as we get into kind of some of the technology and the mechanics piece of this, I think there's still a layer of psychology that goes into those things, right? Like what, the mechanics of a checkout form might still need to have a money back guarantee or some kind of like, features of signals of trust or there are things that are both technical and psychological that layer together. And I think that that's kind of what we'll see in the next couple of back and forth between Greg and I. So what I want to talk about is the actual like checkout pages, the mechanics of making money. And I'm going to ask you each 3 slightly different questions. So I'm going to pose all 3 questions in order right now. So Cheryl, as the copywriter, as the person who helps people create these very rich offer pages, they're very storytelling like, right? They are somewhat long, right? They go through a whole bunch of stages in what you write. So I'd like to ask you, as somebody's about to land on the checkout page, what do you consider? Then I'm going to go to Mike second. Michael, when they get to that page that's about giving money, right? Like, it's credit card time. It's choose which items and which bumps and which things to put in the cart. I'd love for you to take that part of the checkout form conversation. And then Paul, if you could help us with the mechanics, right? Like what things are they getting, seeing, doing immediately because of the actions that they're taking in kind of like an automation perspective. So same question, but instead of you each answering the same question, I just want you to take us through the 3 parts of that question. So Cheryl, when you look at that checkout form and all the content that surrounds the form, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the buyer, what you're selling, where they're coming from. Again, too, sometimes I'll send people straight to cart. Sometimes it's a long form sales page. Sometimes it's a short form sales page. So it goes back to the conversation we just had about where they're coming from and what they're ready for. So like a long form sales page, there is some more storytelling that goes on. You're taking them through the buyer's journey on one page. It's the same journey you take them in an email funnel or, anything really. It's an awareness journey,
right?
Calling out the problem, being really relatable. What does that look like in their actual life? present the solution, down the page you go before you make the offer, and you have a guarantee around the button to make sure they feel good about that next action. But once they get to the sales page, I'm interested in what Michael's going to say. Obviously, he's the expert. But for me and my clients, usually we really focus on having the benefits and everything that like value stacked, so that it looks like, oh man, this is such a great deal. Like, look at all the things I get, because they're going to forget once they get to the checkout cart, that long sales page. Like, wait, what's included again? We really need to recap that. Testimonials for sure, all the way along the sales page and the checkout cart. Testimonials that are results driven though, like testimonials that say, hey, Cheryl's great. She's like my best kept secret in my business. They're wonderful. They feel good, but they don't convert. They're not helpful on the checkout page. The checkout page, we want to see, I had this problem. Oh my God, this helped. Now look at this amazing result I had, right? We need transformation to be shown in those testimonials specifically.
Right.
And then of course the guarantee is very important, but I usually only have like the full guarantee written out on the sales page. On the checkout page, it's more of like a shorter just reminder of that, but definitely having some sort of risk reversal thing for them to be aware of.
I guess that's true of the entire thing, right? Like I found it interesting that you've defined long form versus short form separately, and that sales page that kind of scrolls and scrolls and scrolls and has a heading and an image and some copy, and then another heading and then some image and some copy that should take them down the way. Just to be clear on the mechanics, they're usually clicking from that page into a product like Spiffy.
Yes.
Like they're getting there, they're getting to that checkout or that add to cart or that whatever it is, like one step later after they've done this nice big long journey through this through, and that's why.
Did you say something like Spiffy or a lesser product? Is that what you said?
Or some other thing that you can put a credit card into. Yeah. So. And then on the thing that we're about to bridge to Michael to talk about is where you just give like the true, you're not retelling the story, you're giving the like throughout that whole thing, we wanted you to pay attention to these items of value and risk reversal and whatever.
Yeah, you really got to get inside their mind. What are they thinking when they get there? Like, we all have a little moment of panic before we hit the buy button. So what do you need to put in front of them to remind them of the emotional decision they made when they clicked that button to get to that page from the sales page, right? Like they got there, something on that page made them go, oh my God, I need this actually. Click through. Oh crap, I got to put in my credit card. Do I really want this? Testimonials with transformation. Like, you can do this. Look at these people just like you did it. Look at all the stuff you get. Like, this is juicy. You want this. And ideally some form of urgency, but that's a whole nother. We can get to that later, maybe. We can talk about types of urgency.
As we bridge from that, right, that big long copy form that leads to the sales page that Cheryl was just describing, they've clicked the button. Now they're on a spiffy checkout form or some lesser method of extracting, a payment, of closing the deal. Michael, could you tackle this from both like a psychological, like the stuff that Cheryl wants you to carry over to your page, and also maybe from a technical, like, does the mobile matter? Does the look and feel matter? Does the, what elements of technology matter when they get to that checkout experience?
Yeah. So one of my favorite sayings is like, no amount of, and this is weird coming from the checkout optimization guy, is no amount of checkout optimization and no amount of funnel hacking can fix a broken offer. And so by the time they get to the checkout page, they need to be a motivated buyer. There's no like ninja read that you can just magic words that you can put on a checkout page. It's just going to like voodoo people into giving you money. And so to loop back on what Cheryl brought up there, like the different lengths of sales pages depends on where they're coming from. If they're coming from a cold ad, you need to have a long sales page. But if they came from a 45-minute webinar and they stuck around and you make an offer, that's the same type of messaging that would be on that sales page anyway. So you just take them right to a checkout page. It makes it easy for them to buy. So go to your point, Cameron, making it easy for people to buy from whatever device they're on is critically important. So mobile is bigger than it's ever been before. You need to have a mobile optimized checkout process. Apple Pay, Google Pay, not forcing them to fill out more information than they need. And to kind of loop back on the elements that Cheryl mentioned are critical on the sales page, it's good to have those reinforced on the checkout page as well. Like reestablishing the value of the offer.
Shout out to Marjorie, who was asking a question as you preemptively answered her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's just the value we deliver here. It's anticipatory answers as you articulate the question.
The three things is, you never want to leave the value of the offer to the memory of your prospect. So on the checkout, you want to have quick, succinct, high level of what is it that they're getting, reminding them of the transformation. To not, I don't mean this as direct or as blunt as I might be communicating it, but no one wants your product. No one wants your service. They want the result of your product or service. And so on the sales page, you need to communicate that. And on the checkout, you just need to remind them, hey, here's the value of what we are delivering for you. And it's not the features and the benefits necessarily, although you need to have those things on the sales page. It's more so about communicating the value. So on the checkout, on the sales page, just iterate what Cheryl was talking about. You have social proof, risk reversal. You as the seller need to remove all risk from the buying decision, because you should be so confident in your product or service that if they implement it, that they're going to get a result. So you just reduce all friction, technical friction from a mobile optimized perspective, and then cognitive friction from a psychological perspective, and just making it as easy for people to take that step and take out their credit card and transact with you.
As you were speaking, I'd forgotten that I'd done this. I had formed an opinion in my own mind that Apple Pay is for like coffee shops and movie tickets. And I recall making a considerable purchase on Apple Pay recently. Like I think I purchased a $500 to $600 product that I double tapped the side of my phone. I didn't think about you and Spiffy or any particular piece of technology as I did that, but I remember thinking as a consumer about how almost too easy it was to give that $500-600 by double tapping the side of my phone. So thank you for that, Michael. I know we could again talk for an hour about the specific mechanics of that page, and in the next questions, I'd love to hear about when the stages of a checkout form and so on. But on this question of the checkout form or page or flow consideration, so Cheryl's talked to us about the long form page. Michael has talked to us about like, once they get there and they're motivated, how do we remind them why they're there and then make it easy and technically possible? As an automation person, Paul, like what do you think should be happening? Like as people click buttons on Spiffy, or as people scroll past a certain distance on an offer page, like what automation considerations are you having in that?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that can happen behind the scenes that most people aren't aware of. And so, talking about advertising here, you definitely want to be making sure you're passing over those various conversion events throughout the process, and not conversion of like, oh, they need a purchase, right? Like, if somebody hits the checkout page, you can send over an initiate checkout event, right? So now you could, in theory, remarket to those kinds of folks. You could say, go ahead and show me people that, build an audience of people that did initiate checkout, exclude people that also have a purchase event. There you go. You can go ahead and do remarketing with that. Talking about scrolling on a particular page. I remember I did this a few years ago, probably more than a few years now, but I did have a long-form sales thing for like some ebook. And if you scroll down to where I actually delivered the price of the thing, I fired an event that they actually viewed the offer at that point. So not only was I able to say, hey, here's everyone who hit the page, here's people that actually hung out on the page and made it, through a certain point of it. And then as from an automation standpoint, with things like Keep, we know that we can use page views as an automation trigger. So let's say somebody opts into your free lead magnet, whatever the case it is, and then they're in your follow-up, and now they're going to go to the checkout page. If they go to the checkout page but they don't buy, you can actually now start following up with them. Email, phone number, whatever the case is, and that's all stuff you gotta consider. I always like to say that we're planning for failure. Like we're planning that people are not going to do what we want to do, and we want to kind of grease the slide, make it as easy as possible for them to do what we're going to say they're doing. Which actually, to your point about the Apple Pay, like you just busted out your phone, there you go. We want to make it as easy as possible for people.
My brain didn't have time to have doubt, right? I was putting myself into like, okay, a regret refund customer support situation if I had regret, rather than just a bouncing situation if I had regret, which is kind of interesting. And I love that this whole group has, I don't know if you're all making these up as you go, but greasing the slide is good.
Yeah,
Good
you're
analogy
fast.
to bring this together too. They're fast. So I think that's a cool journey through the three kind of stages or steps of that. Greg, do you have a comment on this topic before?
I was just going to say, good luck pushing a wet noodle up a grease slide.
Easier, harder? I don't know. So yeah, I think that's a good kind of like, well, what are the features of the salesy page, whatever we want to call it. I know we don't all love the word funnels or whatever, but like the sales, offer page, the checkout page, the mechanics and tracking and technology that can surround that. I love that kind of 3-step journey through those. Greg, do you want to let's go back to Greg and talk a little bit about like more of that risk reduction psychology stuff that can help to bring these offers together?
First of all, I'm conscious of the time, and both for our expert guests, but also for the attendees. So we're going to do a final question here, and then maybe like a round of like, closing thoughts. And if the guests can stay and there are questions from the audience, we will continue to do those. But I want to make sure that we just are respectful here. So the last question I have for our guests, and I'll start with Paul on this one, is just like, I would love to leave anybody who sees this content, who sees this webinar, who joined us today or watched the replay, I would love to leave them with like actionable items, like something that they can go do to make more money, so that this changes their business, their sales structure. Like, and we've talked about a lot of like bigger considerations, but from a day-to-day, like low-hanging fruit standpoint, what else can we do to remove friction in the buyer experience? And I have a list here that I was going to ask about sort of independently, but feel free to pick or choose or add your own. But like payment plans versus pay in full, bonuses or we talked a little about testimonials, stats, awards. Like, what are the other like small or maybe really meaningful things that you can change, add, remove, consider in order to reduce the friction a buyer has at that point of decision making? Paul, let's start with you.
Well, I think one thing that's often overlooked because we're all focused on technology and automation and whatnot is like human interaction. So like if somebody makes it all the way down, they come into your funnel and they go through your follow-up and they watch some webinar and they go to your sales page and then now they're at the page, they can pop in their credit card info. You might just want to like pick up the phone and call those people and just see if they're doing okay. And you don't have to be pushy. You don't have to worry necessarily about, upsetting them because like, yes, you are calling them out of the blue, but like they know who you are and what your offer is. And so if I was on a checkout page and then somebody called me and was like, hey, just want to see how you're doing. See, make sure you didn't have any questions because like we don't know what objections or what is causing people to not just bust out their card and go. For some reason, I think of like the self-checkouts that we have at stores now. There's always a human there. There's always like one human responsible for like 6 or something lanes because sometimes you need to talk to a human. Sometimes support. So to your point, Greg, something that I remember seeing, and this is something that it's probably not distinct to this guy, but I want to say that Digital Marketer and Frank Kern would always have like an 800 number on their order form, like on the page where you put in your credit card. Do you have questions? Call this 800 number. And I guarantee that the closing ratio of people that called that number was probably pretty high. But it was also a very intentional thing. It was a very designed thing. My guess is that was probably a unique or a trackable phone number. So when somebody called it, the person or the team on the other end, they knew exactly why somebody was calling them. And they were trained on how to have that conversation and what to do with folks.
I think that's a good one. I remember, Michael, you might be able to correct me on this. It was like 2016 or 17. Michael and I did a presentation together, and one of the items, it may have been an early version of the checklist he uses now. One of them was like, are your contact details on the sales page? and mine were not. And I remember just being like, if somebody has a question, how are they going to reach out to me? And like, like they have to go find the contact us page and fill out a form. And that's too many steps, right? So I remember just feeling like seen in that moment, or called out rather in that moment. Michael, is that correct? Is that still on that checklist?
Yeah, it's in the checklist. So
amazing. Well, I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away all 12 of those points, but let's go to you next. Was there anything else that you want to like shine a light on as far as removing friction from that final experience there?
So I think it's easy to make decisions in your business based off of like cost effectiveness, using lower cost alternative software. And at the end of the day, it's really about creating a seamless customer experience. We look at like our competitors as people just doing like same things that we're doing, like other coaches, if you're a coach, or other copywriters, if you're a copywriter. But when it comes to buying and accessing course content or your service, we're actually competing with Fortune 100 companies. People are used to the ease of and flow and user experience of free tools like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Netflix. Obviously, Netflix isn't free, but low dollar. And so when we're thinking about buying experiences and how people are interacting with our products and services, our competition is actually the big companies, because they're making it really easy for people to navigate and access value. And so we need to ensure that we're doing everything we can to create a frictionless process for people. And so when it comes back to the concept of creating a compelling offer, just to kind of expand on what Paul brought up. It's natural to want to build an online business and think that you don't have to talk to people, and nothing could be further from the truth. The only way that you build a successful online business is actually just picking up the phone, going and grabbing coffee, hopping on Zoom, and actually getting to know your ideal customer intimately. And the other biggest mistake that I see people make is, and it's the natural tendency, especially when you get some early traction, is you create a course and you launch and you have success. And so the natural tendency is to repeat that process. And so you go create another course and you launch and you have a little bit of success. And you go create another course and you have a launch and you have success. And versus iterating upon a single offer. And I'm a huge believer that you can pick one platform, meaning like one social media platform, one channel, one offer, and you can build $1 million business just by focusing, iterating, learning, retooling, honing your copy messaging in, honing the communication of the value of your offer, intimately describing the pain points of that your ideal customer is experiencing now, and in great detail describing better than they can describe what their desired outcome is, and that's really where you get to the point where an offer just crushes it, and you have that momentum and you have that forward success, is actually doing less and doing less well versus trying to do too many things. So I just want to kind of offer that as a kind of a guiding direction.
That's great. There's a book I like that I read. I don't know. I just want to brag about a book I read. So if you guys could congratulate me on that. It's called
That one time.
Existentialism? No. It's the Greg McCowan book. I'm drawing a blank on I'm fumbling the title, but it's The Disciplined Art of Less, right? Of doing less. And it sounds a lot like what Michael's describing. Another version of that same, mantra is dominate, don't dabble. And it's just about like really consolidating your efforts and your focus, rather than spreading it really thin where you might have shallow impact, is like, picking your one offer or your one platform and like, pouring yourself into it in a meaningful way. So, I'm sure that lesson and the different versions of it, have their, just like, I'm sure that feels comforting for the people who know that their efforts have been a little scattered. And there are many of us entrepreneurs who are plagued by that shiny object syndrome. Let's go to Cheryl on this one. Yeah, were those voluntary hand raises? Yeah. Let's go to Cheryl. Is there anything from that list or anything I didn't mention that you want to touch on as far as reducing friction at that point of checkout?
Yeah, well, maybe more overarching than just the checkout, but my closing remarks, if you will. At every point, answer why this, why now. Why this and why now? And why now is important because urgency, I think I mentioned it earlier. If people can just buy it whenever, then there's nothing specific about this offer that ever expires or changes or whatever. It's really hard to motivate people to take action. And it's our job to coach decisiveness, to make a decision either way. Yes, it's for you. No, it's not. But just like that limbo, that ongoing, it can definitely be a source of friction. So think about urgency. There's so many kinds. It doesn't have to be a countdown timer, right? It doesn't have to be prices like a discount is expiring. There can be a lot of different kinds. There's 3 that I coach. The natural urgency, something just happens on a certain date, Black Friday, and it ends at midnight, right? Or I have a client who coaches law students to take the bar exam. Their bar exam is on such and such a date. They have natural urgency just baked right in. Or there's a cohort starting first calls on Tuesday. It's just a fact, right? So that's a form of urgency that you can lean on, as well as internal urgency. That's when that hair on fire nighttime problem is so bad that they, like, if the kind of problem you solve is like that, then there's an inherent natural, like, emotional urgency for the client. And then sometimes we have to apply some external urgency. And that's when we use some marketing levers. We use countdown timers. Maybe the price is going up. Maybe those special bonuses, like Michael was saying, maybe you don't discount your offer, but you include extra. You up that value. When's the deadline for that? When do they have to make a decision for? Because if you can do that, and you can do it in a cool way that is not high pressure and gross too, because we're done with that. We don't need to do that anymore. But giving people a deadline is very effective in making a decision, and you'll see increased sales for that for sure.
Well, and I think that's a perfect opportunity for the bonuses we talked about is like, hey, the price isn't going to change on you. You can sign up when you're ready. But if you sign up by the end of the month, you'll also get this strategy call or, whatever the other thing is that goes in hand with it. Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Before I pass it back to Cam to wrap things up for us, closing wisdom I want to offer is to just like pay attention to the things that you like when you are interacting with businesses, when you are buying things online. Pay attention to the things that rub you the wrong way. We've seen some comments in the Facebook chat about like a distaste for long form pages or feeling slimy with countdown timers or right. But just like bring your marketer lens when you look at your inbox, when you are navigating websites, when you're considering purchases, because there are lessons everywhere, right? There's that, we've all seen like the pie chart that's like things and like things you don't know. And then like things you don't know is like the biggest piece. That has been my experience with the art of launching. There's so much to launching that I didn't really appreciate what goes into a well-orchestrated launch until I signed up as an affiliate for Stu McLaren's Tribe course, half dozen years ago. And I watched from the affiliate standpoint and I was like, oh man, they started months before the open cart. And like there was this buildup and they're orchestrating all these different moving pieces. It really made me appreciate like the art form of launching. And there are experts who all they do is teach you how to launch. Cheryl has conducted, these with her clients, I'm sure. So, and I'm sure that when Michael was with Brendan Burchard, they probably had, an entire season devoted to launching. So I just don't want to downplay that as a mechanism. And if it's something that you want to learn more about, like feel free to, seek out those resources or ask for recommendations and we will certainly provide them. Now, Cameron, do you want to help us stick the landing here?
Well, Jade's going to do that because Jade gets to bookend the whole thing, give us the best of parting words. But just, you said one more piece of insight to add to the conversation. The one thing that I've found myself doing more recently about this whole idea of like the checkout flow and the process and the automation that happens before and after it and offers is that I've noticed that whether we're running, $100,000 businesses or 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, like those aren't tiny businesses. Those are like serious businesses. I think it's interesting to look to how easy it is. I think Michael alluded to this earlier, how easy it is to shop from $1 billion business or a $5 billion business, $10 billion business, right? If you're buying an airline ticket, how seamless versus not seamless is it? If you're buying, just imagine something that we had some internet problems here. We have a construction project next door. Our internet line got severed. How smooth was that dispatch communication from that multi-billion-dollar telecom company? I don't know that everybody needs to do that as your inspiration, but I do sometimes in my daily life to look at, how easy is it to buy Starbucks and McDonald's? Can I even take just a little tiny fraction of how easy it is to buy from Starbucks and McDonald's and bring that to buying, what maybe a smaller business offers? So, I think that's one more thing that I want to take as I've listened to some of our guest speakers today talk about, making this process easy. The thing I want to say before I give it back to Jade is that you are also smart. Like I just want to take in all of this advice all day, every day. So thank you, Cheryl, Michael, and Paul for giving us all of that today. Also, thank you, Jade and Greg, for always showing up to co-host and get sessions like this ready. So I have just nothing but appreciation for all five of you. And with the closing of closing remarks, Jade,
Guys, I'm
it's
gonna
you.
stick the landing because because my closing remark is also my full landing closing here, and it's that personally I really really loved this session because offer and launching is one of my biggest weaknesses personally in my business and things that I try to put out there, and so the only way that you can learn and grow is to show up to stuff like this, is to hang out with people like Paul and Cheryl and Michael and Cam and Greg and just be in those rooms. And guess what, friends? I got a room for you. It's called the OG membership. So if you are watching this and you are not yet a member, it's like this, but all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're like, shit, I have a question about this checkout form. What do I do? I'll be like, I don't know, Michael. What do you think about that? it's it's the coolest room with this caliber of experts hanging out with all of us of all calibers and levels of expertise and our different perspectives. And I personally learn when people are asking questions and talking about things that I never would have even thought to ask, like Greg's pie chart. Like I live in the rest of this space and I get to watch everybody else talk about it. So I cannot speak highly enough. If you are not there yet, go to ogmembership.com. Yes, it's the best. I'm there. We're there. That's all. Yeah. Landing. Stuck.
Stuck
Ah.
it. Nailed it. Thank you, Jade.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.